Everyone thinks that being debt-free means you're winning. But here's the truth. If you don't understand debt and how leverage works, you don't actually understand money, because the entire financial system is built on debt. Your mortgage, debt. Government spending, debt. Corporate growth, funded by debt. Even the dollars in your wallet, they're not backed by gold anymore. They're backed by government debt. That's why wealthy people don't run from debt. They learn how to use it. That's why the wealthy don't run from debt. They learn how to use it. When I bought my first apartment building, I didn't use my own cash. I used the bank's money to control an asset that produced income every single month. Now that's leverage. And once I understood that, I went from owning a few units to owning thousands. So if you're still scared of debt, you're playing the wrong game, because money is debt. And the sooner you understand how to use it, instead of fearing it, the sooner you start building real wealth. So let me show you how the system really works.
Now I'm going to share with you the truth about how money works. So some of you might have seen the cash flow quadrant from Rich Dad, but essentially you've got a E, S, a B, and an I. And for those of you who don't know what that is, employee, self-employed, business, investor. So most of us start off on the left side of the quadrant, the E and the S side, let's say as employees. So this is how the system works. And this is exactly what I wish I would have known. As an employee, many of us are working our butts off, and we're what we would call W-2s, or, we make money each and every couple of weeks. And then what do? We stick it into some kind of a financial institution, like let's say a bank. Okay? So this bank, when it gets your money, it actually is a liability for the bank. The bank actually has an expense back to the people. Now, this doesn't have to stop at a bank. This is the insurance industry, insurance policies. These are pensions, let's say, or these could even be retirement accounts. And all of these systems are set up to take money from what I call Main Street.
Gold is near all-time highs, but appreciation isn't the only way to benefit. Monetary Metals, you could potentially earn a yield on your gold, paid in physical gold, without selling it. Here's how it works. When you lease your gold through their platform, pre-qualified companies pay to use it under strict guidelines, like renting out real estate, but with gold. Instead of paying to store your metal, you may earn up to 4% annually in gold. You stay in control, and you can choose which leases to participate in. Monetary Metals handles the due diligence, lease terms, and all the administration. Thousands of investors use this approach to grow their gold, not just sit on it. Visit monetary-metals.com/Ken to learn more. Leasing gold involves risk, and returns are not guaranteed. This is not an offer to buy or sell securities. Please review all risk disclosures at monetary-metals.com. Visit monetary-metals.com/Ken to learn more.
So money comes in from Main Street, and then guess what? The truth about money, it goes back out to Wall Street. And here's why. Because when you give money to any of these, they actually owe it back to you in some type of a payment. So if the bank, let's say, has a savings rate of 3 or 4%, they owe that back to you. That's an expense of the bank. So what do? They actually have to loan it out to people like me. And this is actually the truth about money. So when there's a liability here from Main Street, they actually suck it out into what's Wall Street, and then it gets lent to, of course, build big projects like we do, like this. So let's say it's paid out at 3%, let's say from this side, then I borrow it at, let's say, 7%, and then, of course, what actually pays all of this back? These assets here pay, of course, the insurance, the pensions, and the retirement accounts, and, of course, the bank. The bank takes all their fees, the insurance company takes their fees, and then that actually makes it back over to Main Street. So the money starts at Main Street, all of it. So when you look at the quadrant, most of us start here as an employee. And then if we get the courage, we start a business or self-employed, let's say. But it all still flows through the system like this. And once it hits here, it becomes a big liability for everybody that sits in here, which is now branded and called Wall Street. So what we're trying to do is bypass all of that and actually take the money from Main Street and invest it into Wall Street type assets. And that is how the rich get richer. So the trouble with Wall Street is they try to make this system very complex, but it's really not complex at all. All they've done is make everyone in Main Street believe that they have to use these middlemen to invest their money. That's it. And they make it so easy. You just take a little piece off your paycheck each and every week, or you dump it into the savings accounts. When in fact, you're getting killed here from inflation. And we all know that inflation has been 3, 4, 5, 6, even 9% recently. It just takes 6 years for whatever balance you have in your bank account, let's say, to have it eroded due to inflation. That's all. It just takes 6 years if you compound that money forward. So as an example, let's say you're on Main Street and you have $100,000 sitting in the bank, and inflation rate has been 6% over 10 years. So your money's still in the bank. It's still $100,000 on your bank statement. It says $100,000. But what does it buy? It buys 50% less of goods and services based on inflation. That's actually true. Even President Reagan once said, inflation is as violent as a mugger, as frightening as an armed robber, and as deadly as a hitman. So for me personally, I started as an E, went to an S, but then once I finally made it over the B quadrant and actually built a business, I started to invest, and that's actually when I understood. It was in my late 30s, once I realized how the system actually works. The entire system relies on Main Street to give its money to them and then to reinvest it back, and they pay pennies on the dollar. Once you understand the system, and you get to the I quadrant and you start investing, this is not for the faint of heart. This is actually what this entire channel is dedicated to, is how do you beat inflation legally, not give the money from Main Street to Wall Street and then ask for it back when you could just get it here and invest in assets directly, beating inflation and becoming incredibly wealthy. If you think about it, this entire industry is just a commissioned industry that completely makes all of its money on you, on your hard savings, as it sits in a bank, insurance, retirement, or a pension. All this industry is doing is just merely taking a fee off of the money you're making already. This entire system is just all about sales and marketing, and they're convincing you that they're better at managing their money than you. And they could be, but that's your job, is to figure out how to take this money and invest it here and bypass these folks. And if you do that, you'll become wealthier faster. And if you want a checklist of everything that we look at when we're trying to buy deals in this category, just click on the link below. One thing to understand, once you go from the E to S to B to I, you realize there's way more money than there are deals. Part of finding deals is expanding your network and knowing what to look for before you take your money or somebody else's money and put it to work. So what really prevented me from growing my business by another $1 billion is not understanding how the system works. I'm now over $750 million in debt, and I now use the system to my advantage. If you want to see how you can use debt for your benefit and other people's money, just like we showed here, just click on the next video.